Okay, this is the recording for the Chapter 4 homework. I asked you guys to do number 2, number 8, and number 10. So I will be doing these actually using Lucidchart. So let me go ahead and share that, and I'll start it on them. So share. Okay, there it is. Okay, so I'm going to create a new document. I'm going to create an ERD, blank ERD. Okay, and this one's going to be for number 2. So I think the best way to do this is to talk through the problem and create the ERD as we go here. I think the important thing here is it will help for you guys to know what I'm thinking as I'm creating things, and I think hopefully that will help you guys as well. So, okay. So number 2 says create a complete ERD that can be implemented in a relational model using the following description of operations. Hot Water is a small startup company that sells spas. They do not carry any stock. A few spas are set up in the warehouse so customers can see the models available, but any products sold must be ordered at the time of sale. So the first thing it says is HW can get spas from several different manufacturers. So I'm going to create an entity, and I'm going to call it manufacturer. It says each manufacturer produces one or more different brands of spas. So I've got another object here. Object called brands, or I'll just call it brand. So each manufacturer produces many brands. And at least one. So I'm going to do that one to many here. And each brand is going to have exactly one manufacturer. Okay. Yeah, and that's what the next one says. Okay, every brand has one or more models. Okay, so I've got another entity here. Model. It said that it had one or many models, so it's at least one and it can be many. Okay. Each model is produced as part of a brand, so this is going to be one and only one. Okay. And then it gives an example. I don't really care about the example, so I'm going to skip to the next requirement here. Each manufacturer is identified by a manufacturer code. That means that manufacturer code would be an attribute in the manufacturer entity. Company name, address, area code, phone number, and account number are kept in the system for every manufacturer. So those would also be attributes for the manufacturer. For each brand, the brand name and brand level are kept in the system. So those would be 2 attributes in the brand entity. And then for each model, the model number, number of jets, number of motors, number of horsepower per motor, suggested retail price, HW retail price, dry weight, water capacity, and seating capacity must be kept in the system. So those are all attributes that would go in the model entity. And that's it for this one. This one was actually pretty straightforward. So basically 3 entities, 2 relationships. So that's a pretty straightforward one. Okay, let's just save this, call it homework 4-2. Okay. And then I'll close this one and we'll do a new document. So new document, blank ERD. All right, so now let's do number 8. Okay, I'll just say to start out with, I wasn't crazy about number 8. In the future, might have students do a different one because I think this one's a little convoluted, and if you do your ERD based on what they tell you, just literally in the requirements here, you actually come up with an ERD that's it's not the greatest. But we haven't talked about normalization yet, so I don't really want to get you guys too confused. So I'm going to be very literal in the way that I create this ERD. I'm going to do exactly according to the business rules that are listed here. Yeah, so there will be some problems with it if you think about, this actually getting implemented in a database environment. But I'm not concerned about that yet. I basically just want us to get practice converting business rules to ERDs. So, all right. Okay, so number 8 says create the ERD that can be implemented for a medical clinic using the following business rules. Okay. A patient can make many appointments with one or more doctors in the clinic, and a doctor can accept appointments with many patients. However, each appointment is made with only one doctor and one patient. Okay, so basically in that interaction there, we've got 3 entities here. We've got patient, we've got appointment, and we've got doctor. And appointment is the entity that relates the two, and it's a one-to-many on either side here. And on this one, I would say a patient's not going to be in the system unless they actually make an appointment. So I'm going to say that's a one-to-one and only one. And a patient will make at least one appointment or else they wouldn't be in the system. So again, I'll say a doctor for an appointment record, there's definitely a doctor on the appointment. And for each doctor, I would say the doctor's not in the system unless they're actually accepting appointments. So I'm going to say that's a one-to-many. Okay. See what else here. It says emergency cases do not require an appointment. However, for appointment management purposes, an emergency is entered into the appointment as unscheduled. What I would say for that one is that basically is just going to be an attribute in the appointment entity, whether it's either scheduled or unscheduled. Yeah, so all right, so I'll go on to the next one. If kept, an appointment yields a visit with the doctor specified in the appointment. The visit yields a diagnosis and, when appropriate, treatment. Okay. There are actually a couple of different ways that you can model this. You could model it through appointment and say that one appointment has 0 or 1 visits because the appointment could yield a visit, and each visit relates to exactly one appointment. Or you could go completely around the appointment record and call it visit and say it's just a relationship between the patient and the doctor in the visit. again, I'm not really sure what the best way is to do that, and I'd take it either way from you guys. I'm going to go ahead and say I think it makes more sense to just go between patient and doctor to visit, and don't worry about relating it to appointment. Okay. So a patient can make or can participate in 0 or many visits. They don't necessarily have to have a visit in the system. They may have made an appointment and then canceled, so they never actually visited the doctor. But each record and visit has to be related to a specific patient. So over here with the doctor, it's hard to really see a scenario where there would be 0 visits, but I guess theoretically it is possible. So I'll put that. I would take it either way though in your homework, but each visit record must be related to an actual doctor. So the patient actually sees a doctor when there's a visit. Okay. Each patient visit creates a bill. And again, this is one of those cases where you could relate the bill through the visit record. And it actually might make the most sense to do that. But you could also basically you could create another entity where you relate the patient and the doctor through the bill in a separate entity. And that's the way I'm going to model it here. Again, this example, I don't think this example is great. And so I think, again, there's multiple ways that you could do this. I'm going to go this way though. I'm going to say a bill is here. It relates the patient to the bill. So a patient can have 0 or many bills. Each bill is related to exactly one patient. A doctor can have 0 or many bills, and each bill is related to exactly one doctor. Okay. Each bill must be paid. However, a bill may be paid in many installments, and a payment may cover more than one bill. A patient may pay the bill directly, or the bill may be the basis for a claim submitted to an insurance company. If the bill is paid by an insurance company, the deductible is submitted to the patient for payment. So now we've got payments, and those are going to be related to bills. We move the, it's one nice thing about using software is you can move things out of the way pretty easily. I'm going to move that down a little bit to make room for payments. So payments, kind of an interesting thing here. So a patient can make a payment, and that payment can pay many bills, or it could pay just one bill, but then the bill can be paid through many payments as well. So really what this is going to require is a couple of different entities here. It's going to require a call this a payment entity, and then I'm actually going to create another one and call it a bill payment entity. I'm going to say one patient can make many payments over time. Each payment is related to exactly one patient. And then each payment can be applied to many bills. So a payment, I'd say it has to be applied to at least one, but it could be applied to many. And for each bill payment record, it applies to exactly one payment. Okay. Each bill can be paid through many bill payments. So the customer might pay it off in installments slowly over time. There doesn't have to be a payment record for a bill because, once the bill is created, it's not paid immediately. So over time, there could be some bill records that don't have any payment information yet. And for each bill payment record, it does relate to exactly one bill. Okay, so that's got the patient part of it, but we also need the insurance part of it. So insurance can make payments as well. And that's kind of a little bit different. I wonder if I can just move. Yeah, select all this, shift everything over just a little bit, maybe down a little bit. I'm going to add the insurance stuff over on the left here, I think. Okay. So add another entity for insurance. And the insurance company insures many patients. I would say that every insurance company has at least one patient, or else they wouldn't be in business. And each patient doesn't necessarily have to have insurance. Not everyone has insurance. So that's going to be a 0 or 1. And then I'm going to model the insurance payments the same way that I modeled the patient payments. So we'll have a insurance payment, and then I'm going to call this over here insurance bill payment. And this is going to work exactly the same as the patient payments. So the insurance can pay zero or many payments. You might, I would say you could even just say one to many, because it's the whole job of an insurance company is to pay medical bills. But theoretically, I guess you could have 0, so I'm going to leave it like that. Insurance payment can be applied to many bills. But if it's an actual payment, then it has at least one bill that it's paying. And each insurance bill payment relates to exactly one insurance payment. Okay. And then lastly, connecting the bill to the insurance payment. So it can have 0 or many insurance payments, and it applies to exactly one bill. Again, this is a little bit messy as far as ERDs go, and I'm not sure I'm real crazy about it, but I think it fits the business rules fairly well, and so this is a way that you could model it. I'm going to have to be fairly flexible in the way that I grade your homeworks, though, because I think that you could model it in different ways. So yeah, hopefully that helps. So I'll go ahead and save this one. Homework 4-8. Okay, close it. And then we'll do one more. Create blank ERD. And this one's going to be for number 10. Okay. So what number 10 says is during peak periods, Temporary Employment Corporation, TEC, places temporary workers in companies. TEC's manager gives you the following description of the business. Okay, so TEC has a file of candidates who are willing to work. So I can already tell candidate is going to be one of these central entities that's going to be related to a lot of things. So I'm going to set it over here, right in the middle. Candidate. Okay. Any candidate who has worked before has a job history. Some are not going to have job history because they've never worked. And each time the candidate works, one additional job history record is created. Okay, so candidate is going to have job history. Actually, I think it might be useful. Before I read the rest of the business rules, I'm going to go ahead and create all the entities because the last part of this problem actually gives you the entities that it wants you to use in here. And so it talks about company, opening, qualification, candidate, job history, placement, course, and session. And so I'm going to go ahead and create all those. I'm going to stick them on here. I'm not going to do relationships with them yet. And as I read through the business rules, then I'm going to fill in relationships and talk about maybe attributes as well, because I think that that will help with the creation of the ERD here. So, okay, so I'm just going to throw these in here. Company, it says, is one of them. So I'm going to go over here and throw company down here. Let's just stick it below that. Okay. Opening. Throw that over here. Okay, qualification. Over here. Job history and candidate we already have. Placement, course, and session. Okay. Move this up a little bit. Oop. I think placement is probably going to fit somewhere over here. In fact, I might move it a little over here. I have an idea where I'm going to need room, so I'm trying to spread it out a little. Okay, course and session. Okay, hopefully I've been leaving enough room for everything else I'm going to need in there. But yeah, I think this gets us a good start. So these are all of the entities that they wanted us to use here. Okay, so I'm going to go back in here and read the business rule that I was working on when I kind of took a break there. So any candidate who has worked before has a job history, but not all candidates are going to have job history. So let's go ahead and make this relationship here. So some candidates will not have job history, so that's 0 to many. Each job history there is going to relate to exactly one candidate. We wouldn't have job history for people who are not actually candidates. So, all right. Each candidate has earned several qualifications. Okay. So let's go ahead and model that. A candidate has earned qualifications, and it says each one has earned multiple qualifications. So that's a one to many there. Each qualification may be earned by more than one candidate. Actually, that was, yeah, I didn't do that correctly. Let's go ahead and delete that relationship. This is going to be a many to many because it says each qualification may be earned by more than one candidate. So let me move this out just a little bit. Okay. So let's say candidate qualification words. Okay, so each qualification may be earned by many candidates, and each candidate can earn many qualifications, but we know that they may not have any qualifications, right? Or no, that they do, sorry. They have earned several qualifications. So this is a one to many, and this is a one to one. For the qualifications, I'm going to say the qualifications, we wouldn't have any qualifications if there weren't any candidates that, well, I'd take either because it doesn't really address it. It's either 0 to many or 1 to many. It's possible there's a qualification that doesn't have a candidate, so we'll say that. And it is going to be one and only one for the qualification side of that one. Okay. TEC offers courses to help candidates improve their qualification. So now we're going to start talking about the course entity here. Every course develops one specific qualification. However, TEC does not offer a course for every qualification. Some qualifications are developed through multiple courses. Okay, so what that says is that qualification has 0 or many courses. So you may not have any courses that develop that qualification, but you might have many courses that develop that qualification. Each course is related to exactly one qualification though. Okay. Some courses cover advanced topics that require specific qualifications as prerequisites. Let's move this over here and maybe move it up higher because I'm about to create qualification prerequisites entity. So I need to be able to model the fact that some qualifications require, whoops, prerequisites. Okay. So some courses require prerequisites. Some courses do not require prerequisites. A course can have several prerequisites, and a qualification can be a prerequisite for more or one course. Okay. So qualification can be a prerequisite in many courses. It doesn't have to be a prerequisite in any courses, but it can be in many. For each qualification prerequisite entry there, it's going to apply to exactly one qualification. Okay. Each course can have many qualification prerequisites. However, a course does not have to have any prerequisites, but each qualification prerequisite record is going to be related to exactly one course. All right. Okay, moving on to the next one. Courses are taught during training sessions. A training session is the presentation of a single course. Over time, TEC will offer many training sessions for each course. However, new courses may not have any training sessions scheduled right away. Okay. So what that means is that each course can have many training sessions. It doesn't have to have any, but it could have many. Each training session relates to exactly one course. Candidates can pay a fee to attend a training session. A training session can accommodate several candidates, although new training sessions will not have any candidates registered at first. Okay, so I'm going to call this session registration maybe. So and this is going to go between candidate and session. Okay. So each session can have many registrations. However, it begins with 0 when it's first offered. Each registration or each session registration applies to exactly one training. Move this over a little so we can see their relationships. Okay. Now I'll relate candidate there. Each candidate can participate in registration sessions. They don't have to participate in any, but they could. For each one, it's going to relate to exactly one candidate. All right, so we're starting to fill in the details here and connect to these. All right. Candidates, let's see. Okay. TEC also has a list of companies that request temporaries. Okay, so now we're starting to talk about companies here. Each time a company requests a temporary, TEC makes an entry in the openings folder. So a company requests employees by having openings. So each company is going to have, I'm going to say one-to-many openings because we're not going to keep company information in here unless they're actually making requests for employees. And each opening is related to exactly one company. Okay. All right, and then it talks about this idea of an openings folder. That folder contains an opening number, a company name, required qualifications, starting date, anticipated ending date, and hourly pay. So it talks about required qualifications here. And so this is going to relate the openings entity with the qualifications entity. Let me move this down a little bit so we can relate those two. And I'm going to say, going to call this required qualification. Stick it right here. So for each qualification record here, there can be many records of requiring that specific qualification. However, I don't know if they have to participate in at least one. So there could be 0 to many. For each record and required qualification, you're going to have exactly one qualification. Okay, so for each opening, you could have many required qualifications. I would say you have to have at least one though, so it's going to be a 1 many, and that's going to relate to exactly one opening. All right. Okay. Each opening requires only one specific or main qualification. Now, this is one thing I don't like about these business rules here. And I guess it reflects a little bit of reality, because in reality, business rules get a little fuzzy. But it just listed that you have many required qualifications, and now it's saying that there's only one main one. The way that I would implement that in this ERD is make in this required qualification entity that's the associative entity there, I would specify whether it's the main qualification there. So maybe is main qualification as a Boolean, a yes, no, true, false type thing. Anyway, that gets a little bit fuzzy there, but I think this is still probably the best way to model it. Okay. When a candidate matches the qualification, the job is assigned, and an entry is made in the placement record folder. Okay, so now we're talking about this placement thing. The folder contains such information as the opening number, a candidate number, and the total hours worked. In addition, an entry is made in the job history for the candidate. It says an opening can be filled by many candidates, and a candidate can fill many openings. All right. So that makes it a little bit complicated there. So it says many candidates can basically fill one opening. So between opening and placement here, so okay, sorry. So actually worked this out, but now I'm rethinking it a little bit. An opening can be filled by many candidates, and a candidate can fill in many openings. So is placement the associative entity between the two? Yeah, I think that's what it's saying here. So a candidate can be in many placement records, which relate to openings. And I would say it's a 0 to many, because not all candidates have found a placement yet. But each placement record is going to have exactly one candidate. Each opening can be filled by many candidates in a placement. And I'll say that's also a 0 to many because an opening takes a while to get filled. And each placement record relates to exactly one opening. Okay. And then the last thing it says, TEC uses special codes to describe a candidate's qualifications for an opening, and it shows an example there. I would say that's probably the details of the qualification table. Yeah, aside from more information, that's what I would say is that table 4.10 probably just shows you the actual data that would be in the qualification table. And that's kind of how I would take it there. Oh, the last thing it did say, something I missed in here. Okay, in addition, an entry is made in the job history for the candidate. That doesn't have to be modeled. And I would say in practice, I probably wouldn't relate that just because it makes the relationships more complicated than they need to be. But if you do want to model job history and placement, that relationship there, then it would be like this, where it would be a one and only one on this side, and then a 0 or 1 on this side. So each placement record is going to create a job history record, but each job history record doesn't necessarily apply to placement because candidates had job history before they came into the temporary agency, and so they weren't always involved. That job history wasn't always placements through the temporary employment. Okay, so that's it. Fairly complicated, but I actually liked the business rules a little bit better in this one as compared to the one before. So hopefully this makes things a little bit more clear. Again, the reason I have you guys do so much practice here early on in the semester is because I think it sets you up well for later in the semester. So hopefully you found this informative and helpful. And that's all I've got.